Today we'll be looking at where do you start in applying for grants, and we'll give an overview of the funding landscape. So we'll look in section 1 at your grant funding journey, and we'll look at trying to develop a strategic roadmap, and then we'll look at asking the questions you should be asking yourself to help you find the grants that are worthy of your time and energy. And then in section 2, we'll look at funders in a bit more detail, and I'll give you a few insights into different funders and the support services that are available to you. And then we'll have time at the end for a Q&A. So if you've got any questions, like Pete said, please put them in the Q&A chat, or just bring them up at the end of the webinar. So first, let's have a look at your grant funding journey. So ask yourself some questions. These top questions are designed to help you clarify your long-term vision and purpose as a researcher, and they serve as the kind of foundational first steps in your grant seeking journey. So I'm sure a lot of you have already asked yourself these questions, and you've already kind of, well, I'm sure you're all very aware of what your research speciality is or what you'd like to go into. So instead of immediately searching for grants, these questions prompt you to identify your niche. So they help you move beyond a general field of study to pinpoint the specific area where you can make a unique and significant contribution. So they help you as well to align your passion with purpose. So by linking what you're passionate about with the problems you want to solve, you can search for funding opportunities that are not only financially viable, but also personally fulfilling to you. And you want to be looking at creating a strategic plan. So thinking about what your career might look like in 5, 10, or 20 years' time. You might not even want to be in research in 10 years. You might decide you want to go into more policy or something like that. But see grant applications not as isolated events, but as stepping stones on a strategic roadmap. So this prevents you from pursuing every available grant, and instead encourages you to kind of seek out opportunities that are really aligned with your long-term goals. And with grant applications, the best grant applications that are, more likely to be successful are ones that are really tailored, and you've really thought about kind of where they're taking you on your plan. So the more preliminary work you can do at the beginning, the better your efforts will be. So once you've done that, you can start to kind of map out a bit of a timeline. So this is an example timeline, obviously. It outlines a typical yet flexible grant funding journey, and it shows how each step builds on the last to help you achieve your long-term career aspirations. So in the first year, it's all about building a strong track record, which I'm sure you are doing all the time and you've already done a lot of. So this initial year is all about strengthening your professional portfolio and establishing a robust track record. So this might be presenting at conferences, publishing in well-known journals, mentoring PhD students, acting as an advisor on executive boards or networking, doing STEM outreach, the list goes on. And it's all about how are you contributing to a positive working environment? How are you kind of supporting the wider innovation community? How are you demonstrating your leadership skills? Because if you are looking at a fellowship, this is very much an investment in you as an individual researcher. So while obviously you need a great project idea, fellowships are very, very heavily weighted on your track record. So we've seen people who have absolutely fabulous project ideas, but unfortunately their track record just isn't quite there yet. So they need to go away and do a bit more work on that, and then that would really put them in a great position to start looking at a fellowship. So after you've done that years 2 to 5, you can then go on to start looking at a fellowship, securing your independence, applying for maybe smaller grants, which an example would be what you've already done in securing this research in, a grant to be on this research in residence scheme. So another example could be that you want to undertake a feasibility study. You've identified something that you're interested in, and you kind of want to see if it's got legs, whether it's possible and whether it's practical. So I appreciate that smaller grant applications can often be just as time consuming as, larger grant applications, but they are a necessary step to get you to where you want to be. So, don't give up, keep going, try and remain motivated. I know it's hard, but, you will get there in the end. Years 6 to 8 are all about kind of working on larger scale grants. So this is stepping into leadership as a co-I, so a co-investigator. So it's a fantastic opportunity to gain invaluable experience in mentorship and team management within a collaborative environment. You could take on responsibility for specific parts of the project. You could learn to coordinate efforts and manage resources without the full burden of being the principal investigator. And you could do this on any kind of project grant. You could get experience in that. And then years 8 to 10, you could look at actually taking the principal lead on projects. So this period would mark a kind of pivotal moment where you actively pursue large multi-partner grants as a principal investigator, where you really truly step into the lead role, driving the overall vision of major projects, making key decisions, and overseeing, significant budgets and teams, and really establishing your reputation as a capable and impactful researcher in your field. And again, you could do this on any kind of grant. Beyond 10 years, this is all about you becoming a thought leader in your field. So it could be the ultimate goal for you to run a prestigious multi-partner program grant. EPSRC is a funder that offers these. So these signify that you've not only mastered the art of securing and managing large grants, but you've also cemented your position as a thought leader in your research speciality, driving significant advancements and shaping the future of your field. So you want to ensure that each grant application you're on is contributing to your overarching kind of career vision. So finding your fit, the crucial first steps. So number one is, know your project. So you kind of want to think about these questions to make sure that you're focused and ready. It will save you a lot of time, helping you find the right opportunities. So if we look at number one, which is key. So what's the core problem your research is trying to solve? What is the specific issue or need? What is the expected outcome or product of your research? For example, do you want to create a new technology? Is it a data set? Is it a theoretical model? Is it a proof of concept? Like, what actually do you want to do? What is your project all about? You want to try and identify the target sector. So to do this, you need to look at what is the potential impact. So a research idea obviously can have many impacts, and that's something you actually need to talk about in the proposal, societal, environmental, economic, but impacts are directly tied to sectors. So think about the potential for your idea to create change, and we're talking about a significant shift here. So where is the most significant shift? Is the most significant shift, is it an economic impact? So will it lead to a new product or a more efficient process? So this could point to sectors like manufacturing or technology. Is it a societal impact? So will it improve people's health, safety, education, or quality of life? This points to sectors like healthcare, public services, or education. Or is it a real massive shift in environmental areas? So will it improve sustainability, reduce pollution, or contribution to renewable energy? So that's pointing to sectors like clean technology, energy, or agriculture. And next, you want to, from that, you can then start to pinpoint the end user or the beneficiary. So who actually wants what you're doing? So who's going to ultimately use or benefit your research? Is it somebody in the aerospace sector? Is it somebody in defense? Is it someone in nuclear or agriculture? So that's when you'd start to potentially bring in end users. So you could get letters of support with them to, really strengthen your application. You want to think about who's going to lead the project. Is it going to be you? So if it was a fellowship, that would be you, of course. Is it a solo application, or is it you working with multiple collaborators? And for you to figure that out, you need to think, do you have the necessary skills? So you might be an expert in your primary field, but your research may require skills that you don't possess. You could think about, do you have necessarily all the equipment or research resources? So even if you have the expertise, you might not have the right tools. So do you need to use a particular machine that only the AMRC has? So therefore you need to bring us in as a partner, that kind of thing. And what is the overall scale and scope? So if you're looking to apply for a really ambitious project that tackles a complex problem, it's probably too big for you to do on your own. So you'll need to be looking at bringing in different research groups. And as well, think about how your research will be disseminated and used. So again, consider the end user of your research. If the goal is to create a new product, you'll need an industry collaborator with a commercialization pathway. And collaborators can provide the critical link between your research and real world impact. And the next one, expected project duration. So this goes back to point one, really, understanding your project. So you want to try and break your project down into really small, manageable tasks. So that might be you want to do a literature review, or you want to do data collection. And then for each task, you want to try and estimate the time required that that's going to take you, and also consider your resources. So obviously your project's duration is heavily dependent on the resources you have available. So how many people will you need to work on this? Will they be working full-time, part-time? So that will help you figure out, okay, this is looking like a 6-month project, or actually this is going to be realistically 2 years. And then your expected value and project costs. So what do you actually need the funding for? What are your financial needs? And be realistic. Don't play your costs down. You need to actually be really specific on what you want. So do you need, you'll obviously need costs for salaries, costs for equipment, consumables, materials. You might need to do some traveling. So you need to try and break that down. And answering all these questions can help you move from a general search to a more targeted search, and it can make the whole process of looking for grant funding a lot more manageable, because I completely appreciate it's very overwhelming, and that's how numerous people feel about this. So again, with doing this work up front, anything you do here will really help you when you come to actually writing the grant as well, because you're already really thinking about these things. You're already getting into the specifics of what you want to do, what you want to deliver, who you need to speak to. So it's really important work. Another thing to consider is a TRL level, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. So this is, again, a critical step in targeting specific funders, because certain funders will only support certain TRL levels, and that's usually specified in the competition guidance. This is taken from UCRI's TRL scale, so this is what they base, what they call each TRL level, basically. So TRLs 1 to 3, this is kind of early stage research. So this is funders who focus on fundamental research and early stage scientific breakthroughs. So these are typically government bodies. So this would be UK Research and Innovation Research Council, so EPSRC, or maybe charitable foundations. TRL 4 to 6 is more to do with development and prototyping. So funders to target would focus on kind of innovation and technology transfer. So this includes government agencies, innovation bodies that bridge the gap between academia and industry. So, for example, Innovate UK. And the catapults predominantly operate within this 4 to 6 space. So the work we do at the AMRC, the majority of it really is TRL 4 to 6. And then the later TRLs are all about demonstration and deployment. So they would be funders who focus on commercialization, market entry. So this is more kind of like venture capitalists or government programs that aim to support kind of full scale deployment. So it's very important that you try and accurately assess your project's TRL scale, so you avoid wasting time on looking at funders that won't be interested, or you won't in what you're doing, or you won't be eligible for these funders. And what funders want to see is that you are progressing along the TRL scale. So they'll want to see that you're starting at TRL 4, and by the end of your project, you're getting to TRL 6. But again, this information is often specified in the specific call or competition guidance. So looking at some actual funders now and the funding landscape, this is kind of the structure of UCRI, UK Research and Innovation. So UCRI is the major public funder of research and innovation in the UK. It's a unified body. It brings together the 7 research councils, Innovate UK and Research England into a single organisation. And its mission is to maximise the contribution of research and innovation to society and the economy. So its key roles are to provide funding, so that could be fellowships to researchers, and it helps find solutions to global challenges. So there's lots of different funding opportunities that they offer. They help people develop research capacity. UCRI promotes innovation, so it fosters collaboration between academia and industry. So it helps translate research into commercial products and services, driving ultimately economic growth. And today we are mostly going to look at, well, from UCRI, we're going to look at EPSRC and Innovate UK instead of focusing on all of them. So looking at Innovate UK first, Innovate UK looks at kind of, it does do some lower TRL work, but the majority of what it does is higher TRL. So it's all about driving innovation to grow the UK economy, finding brilliant ideas and developing them to sustain an outstanding innovation ecosystem. There are multiple different competitions it offers. So knowledge transfer partnerships, sector-specific competitions, Future Leaders Fellowship, which we'll talk about a bit later. Usually these competitions do need to be business-led. Funding completely varies, but usually as a university, someone who is working at a university, we could get up to 30% of the total eligible project cost, and of those costs, we would be funded at 80% full economic costing. So we'd get 80% of that 30% figure. And opportunities are submitted through the Innovation Funding Service. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with GES or not, but there's an additional application form you have to submit, which kind of just details our cost basically and our justification of resources. They have some really good support systems in place. So there's Innovate UK Business Connect. So they help people find partners and build consortiums and they can answer questions. They're very helpful, so you can reach out to them as well. And they fund different types of projects. So there's feasibility studies, which are of lower TRL. So essentially it answers the question, should we proceed with this project by doing a feasibility study? So for Innovate UK, these are about figuring out whether the idea will work, whether the consortium will work, or whether something can actually be done. And the duration is usually around 3 to 6 months for those. Innovate UK also fund industrial research. So this focuses on more proof of concept or prototype work, either tested in a relevant environment or a testbed environment. So project duration tends to be much longer, around 18 to 36 months, and the money available for those is a lot more as well. They also fund experimental development, which is much closer to market. So because of that, the grant funding available is typically a bit less. But again, these projects tend to be around for 18 to 36 months. So this is what a competition page would look like on Innovate UK. If you click on the dates section, they often have a lot of webinars, events, brokerage events, networking events, which are really useful to attend and meet people and, you know, either to help you develop a consortium for this call, or you could actually go to those events to help you develop a consortium for something different. And lots of other funders publish their opportunities through Innovate UK. So Innovate UK also kind of acts as an umbrella for other funders to showcase what competitions they've got out there. Looking at EPSRC now, because on your strategic roadmap you might want to go for an EPSRC grant first. EPSRC's mission is to create knowledge and engineering in the physical sciences for UK capability to benefit the society and the economy. And as we mentioned before, TRL is typically a lot lower. So it's really early TRL 1 to 3/4. Its core function at EPSRC is to fund research. So they provide grants for real cutting edge research projects. They do a lot of grant funding around talent development. So offering fellowships, professional development programs. They again have the Future Leaders Fellowship, which we'll talk about in a bit. They really want to promote knowledge transfers. They help people work with, they help academics work with industry. So translating that research into real world impact. And they also support projects for if you wanted, you know, to build a new research facility, or you needed a piece of equipment, they could offer funding for that. They offer a variety of schemes, so program grants, we spoke about those before on the strategic roadmap. They offer bilateral competitions, and these are more focused on universities or individual academics, so it's not business-led, it is usually university-led. And project size varies, value varies by competition, but these are also funded at 80% full economic costs. And these opportunities are found on UCRI's funding service. So that's also where you'd submit your application as well. So when you're applying for an EPSRC grant, you need to make sure that it sits within EPSRC's portfolio. So EPSRC has 8 strategic priorities, 10 different research themes, 4 different thematic areas, and they have 100 research areas, and they also have a strategic delivery plan. So the strategic delivery plan sets out what EPSRC promises to deliver, and you need to make sure that if you are applying for an EPSRC grant, your project aligns with all these areas. So you need to create a little, what we sometimes do is create a table. So you'd have your strategic priorities at the top, you'd go and have a look, right? where does it fit? Your research themes, okay, it fits within engineering. You have to make sure you're hitting all these areas, otherwise EPSRC, it's very unlikely that they're going to fund your application. So you really need to show alignment. And again, this preliminary work, going through these documents, finding where it sits, that can all help you write your actual grant application. So looking at the UCRI Future Leaders Fellowship, because this could be something that you want to pursue. This fellowship is a flagship investment that aims to develop the next wave of world-class research and innovation leaders in academia and business. It's also open to international applicants. And the FLF is a bit different to normal fellowships in that it provides really long-term support. So you can apply for funding for 4 years, which is the minimum, but then you can actually extend, the duration of your project to focus on more ambitious and challenging research, and also to help you develop your career. So it provides funding for work in all research and innovation areas supported by UCRI. So going back to that structure at the beginning of UCRI with the 7 research councils, if your project idea aligns with one of those research councils, they'd be interested in it. And to be eligible for this, you've got to be an early career researcher or innovator who is either looking to establish or transition to independence, or looking to develop your own original and ambitious plans within a commercial setting. So there, I can just see someone's popped up saying, is there an age limit to FLF? I don't actually think there is, because I don't think there's any rules based on years since PhD. And I actually think you don't, especially for the business one, you don't actually need a PhD to do that. You just need to show that you've got the relevant experience within the area. So to ensure the successful development of the fellow, the FLF comes with a requirement for the host organisation to commit significant support. So for academic hosted fellows, this includes the commitment to providing an open-ended UK-based independent research and innovation position to be taken up during or upon the completion of the fellowship. And these fellowships offer flexibility to individuals, whatever your background. So they're for people from diverse career backgrounds, or returning from a career break, returning to research and innovation from times in other roles, or you could do this part-time while you're working on other things. So they're very flexible and supportive. So the primary difference between these is that there's 2 different submission paths, and this is based on the host organisation. So for the Academic Future Leaders Fellowship, the applicant must be based at a university or an academic institution, or the other route you can go down is the Business or Non-Academic Future Leaders Fellowship. So you would be based at or have the support of an eligible non-academic host organisation. That could also include charities. So the AMRC would be eligible for the Business or Non-Academic Future Leaders Fellowship. So you also don't have to be based here. You could, if you were already working in a university, but you wanted to come and get that, you wanted to do it within a catapult, you could speak to us and see whether that would be possible, and potentially do it here instead. The application questions are very similar, but they do vary. And the Business or Non-Academic FLF is focused on giving the individual the skills to become a leader in translating knowledge into practical solutions that industry want to generate economic or societal value. So the outputs of what you're trying to do, they're either more kind of business focused or more academic focused, really. So, for example, the academic FLF might be a lot more centered around journal publications, that kind of thing, whereas the non-academic one would be a lot more about working with industry and gaining that experience and insight through that. So the current round that is open for this is round 10, and the academic option for this just closed in June, but the business and non-academic one is currently open, but it does close in November. So I wouldn't recommend trying to put an application together for that now, because I think there's probably not enough time to do that, really. But this is something that you could work towards to do next year. And these are extremely prestigious. You need a very strong track record to go for these. So perhaps this is something that might be a bit later on in your timeline. Right. You might look to do this actually instead of next year. It might be better off to go for this or something very similar a bit later on when you've gained a bit more experience, perhaps. Because again, these are fellowships, they're very much weighted on you as an individual, and have you got a robust track record. Another thing that UCRI offer is proof of concept funding. So this funding supports early to mid-stage stage commercialization activities that validate the development of concepts that arose from research. So this is to support and enable the commercial application of existing research along varied commercialization pathways or other commercialization routes. So really early discovery research wouldn't be eligible for this. It's more about commercialization, I can't say that word, but you know what I mean, research that already exists. So the intended outputs of funded projects should include the development of an appropriate commercialization proposition and strategy. So this might include increasing readiness towards an investable or licensable proposition. And again, applications from any discipline across UCRI are welcomed. And one of the key things to mention here is that your application needs to be supported by your research office. So only a certain number of these applications can be submitted by universities or by organisations. So your organisation will probably have a demand management process in place. So you'll have to go through an internal process, and then your organisation will put forward the best applications. And I think that universities are limited to 2 or 3 applications for those. This opportunity closed in May, but it is expected to open again next year. And perhaps this could be something that sits in your roadmap. So in time, you could look to commercialize some of the research you're doing, license some of the research. Maybe you do want to set up, a spin out. You want to do something like that. So that could fall into your timeline as well. This is a different funder that I wanted to talk a little bit about. So ARIA. So the first calls for this opened in 2024. So ARIA is government-backed and sponsored by the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, or DSIT. And they're all about, failure is fine. They're interested in really high-risk, ambitious ideas that could unlock world-changing capabilities. They're interested in funding large-scale, long-term research programs that tackle really complex challenges. And the funding scheme is there to really drive transformational change, not incremental change. So they want really like kind of out there ideas, and they will fund projects across a whole spectrum of disciplines. They really encourage different researchers to work together from different institutions. So a very interdisciplinary approach. And this is something that all funders are wanting to see more of now anyway. They're wanting to see that you're working with different disciplines. You know, you're really thinking, taking a holistic view when answering questions. And these are very competitive. The success rate is lower. I think that's probably because the scope is so wide, but it could be worth reaching out to ARIA, getting some more guidance, speaking to people if it is something you're interested in. And they kind of have a different approach. So there's 7 programs or opportunity spaces which are listed on screen. And the whole idea is that they back people and then projects. So program directors are assigned to each of these 7 areas, and the program directors are people who've been like picked as, you know, thought leaders in that area. So they are the people who define their opportunity spaces and kind of set the direction and decide how best to fund research and development in that space. So looking at sector-specific funders now, this is looking at the Aerospace Technology Institute, or ATI. So ATI is an independent, not-for-profit organisation which is joint funded by the government and industry, and it ensures the UK remains a global leader in aerospace. So it focuses on civil aerospace. So the ATI sets out aerospace's technology strategy. So they develop and implement a long-term technology strategy for the UK aerospace sector, and they identify the key areas for investment and innovation, ensuring the UK's competitiveness in the global market. So it's really, really important. The key takeaway from this is that if you are interested in this, it might be something you want to look at in the future. Your idea has to be aligned with the ATI's Destination Zero strategy. Within that strategy, they have a number of different roadmaps, which are very broad and detailed. And you have to make sure that what you're doing also aligns with the blocks that are on those roadmaps. So that could be additive manufacturing, cryogenic coolers, advanced propulsion systems, hydrogen, storage tanks. You know, it has to show alignment. Otherwise, they're not going to be interested in your project, unfortunately. So the Destination Zero strategy is all about how we're going to achieve net zero carbon emissions in commercial aircraft by 2050. That's the ultimate goal that we're trying to reach. It supports UK industry and competitiveness in sustainable design, manufacture, assembly and operations. And they help, the ATI helps facilitate collaboration. So pretty much all their projects are collaborative. A lot of them are business led. They have different funding streams. They have a strategic program, which we'll have a look at in a minute. They have a program which is more tailored towards supporting SMEs. And then they also have funding for research into non-CO2 emitting aviation systems. And again, this is for civil aerospace, it's not defence. So the ATI is all about ensuring that the UK continues to have success globally in aerospace technology and manufacturing. And this is just looking at one of the schemes they offer in more detail, so the ATI strategic programme. So the TRL is between 4 and 6. They want you to start around 4 to 5, and by the end of the project to have achieved TRL 6. There are 2 strands. to the ATI strategic programme, and your project cannot be a mix of the both. It has to be one or the other. So they either fund industrial research, and that's got to be business led, or you can apply to do a capital infrastructure project, which can be led by academia or solo applicants. And that's about buying a piece of equipment or building a facility, something like that. It's a big funding pot available. And as an academic institution, you could get 80% of your full economic costs. And the application is over 2 stages. So you'd initially do an expression of interest, and then if they like your idea, they'd invite you to submit a full stage application. On the ATI's website, they list when their competition dates are. So these circles are the ones that are coming up. So the next deadline is the 22nd of October. I think that's actually changed. They've moved that forward to the 8th. And then the last one this year is in November. That's when the expression of interest windows are. And then you align it up. So you'd have to go for the next appropriate batching date. So these batching dates, this is for the full stage. The full stage is on the 8th of October. So you do your expression of interest, you'd get your feedback, and then you'd have to, if they liked your idea, you'd submit into the next full stage application window. And this is good, showing you their dates, because obviously you can plan, but also they have recurring calls. So the expression of interest calls are every month. The batching dates are about 3 or 4 times a year. So it allows you to work up an application. So you don't need to rush to submit something. You can, start working up an application slowly and submit it when, it's really as good as it can be. And the ATI are very, very good at hand holding. So, take advantage of the support there is. You can submit outline stages for review. They will review things for you. They'll give you a lot of feedback. They're really helpful in that respect. They also have an ATI hub where they have a lot of events. They have technical clinics where you can have the opportunity to talk to an ATI technologist. They'll help you prepare strong submissions. They offer workshops, showcases, boot camps. So that's really, really helpful as well. So looking now at funders within the defence sector, DASA, the Defence and Security Accelerator, offer funding for projects where you're going to have a benefit to people either in defence or security. So they want to find exploitable innovation for a safer future. So they support the UK to have a strategic advantage through the most innovative defence and security capabilities in the world. So they have themed competitions, which is more, it's a customer pull. So there's user-defined challenges. The competitions will have a specific TRL, which will be stated in the guidance, and the funding level and project duration as well will vary. They also have open calls for innovation, which run throughout the year. So you as the innovator, it would be you would be proposing the idea rather than them saying, we want you to do this. You are the one putting the idea forward to them. They have cycles throughout the year. And what they do at DASA, they have people who are called regional innovation partners. So different regions will have a contact who can help people with applying who are located in that area. So for us, our regional innovation partner is a lady called Claire Green. And she is really, really good at hand holding, and you can get her on a call and she's very supportive, and she can tell you, yes or no, you're on the mark here. No, they're not going to be interested, that kind of thing, to help you put your efforts in the right area. And submission and opportunities are listed through the DASA website. Also, a good thing to note about these, they are 100% funded. So they're not 80% funded. We get 100% of our costs back, but unfortunately we can't claim for VAT. So we couldn't get VAT on equipment, things like that. So moving on now from UK funders, let's have a little look at European funding. So Horizon Europe, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of. So it's the EU's key funding programme for research and innovation, with a budget of 95.5 billion. So Pillar 1 is all focused on excellent science. So they offer fellowships through the European Research Council, or ERC, which are extremely prestigious. ERC fund ambitious frontier research projects, often for individual researchers and their teams. So these are really for pushing the boundaries of knowledge. Pillar 2 is all about solving global challenges through collaborative research and innovation. So there's 6 clusters that sit under Pillar 2, and they all cover different themes. So you've got one of the clusters focuses on health, and within that cluster there'll be lots of different funding competitions. There's one that focuses on digital industry and space, climate, energy and mobility. So for us at the AMRC, this is really the pillar that we're kind of interested in here. So currently we're involved in about 7 or 8 consortiums for different projects that lie under this pillar. And Pillar 3 is all about supporting business growth and competitiveness. So this is just looking at Pillar 2 in more detail and using that as a bit of an example. So there are different types of, they're called actions. So research and innovation actions and innovation actions. So both of these are research projects, but it's just that the TRL they're targeting is different. So research innovation action competitions look at more lower TRL work, and innovation actions are higher TRL. Coordination and support actions, these are projects designed to facilitate collaboration, networking and the dissemination of research and innovation. So by providing services like policy dialogue, studies, coordination activities. So in terms of who can lead and consortium, you must have a minimum of 3 independent legal entities in a different EU member state or associated country. And at least one of those 3 must be from a member state. So, for example, the UK, we're an associated country, we're not a member country. So you couldn't have your 3 being the UK and then 2 other people who were also associated countries. One of them would need to be a member country. So, for example, UK, Italy and Spain. But really, you would never have a project with 3 consortium members. These are, massive projects over many years. So your consortiums might be 10, 15, 20 people. They are very, very big projects. So a typical proposal could be between 1 million and 10 million plus, duration around 2 to 3 years. Universities are funded at 100% of our eligible costs, and we get a flat rate of 25% for our overheads. If you're a business, the rates do vary, as with all funders. And these, again, as I said, are very large applications. So your proposal is about 45 to 50 pages, and then you have lots of administrative forms as well. So my advice to you would be, this is something that you would look to do probably, definitely not to lead on your own immediately. But if this is something you wanted to get into, you could look to join consortiums as a partner, maybe delivering a few work packages just to gain that experience. And then you could kind of work up to maybe leading one of these in the future. But these are really huge undertakings. So strategically, it's probably better really to look to just partner on things initially. And there's lots of reasons to participate. So obviously you've got your national schemes, we've got, you know, UCRI, DASA, everything else, but this is in addition to that. It gives you a mix of lower and higher TRL opportunities. It's quite a good recovery rate in terms of costs. You get yourself out there at a global level. You get access to cutting edge technologies and infrastructure. The work packages come out fairly early. The work packages for 26, 27 are, I believe, out or going to come out very soon. So you have visibility of what's upcoming. And for some sectors, it provides guaranteed and predictable funding. You kind of know what's going to come in those areas and you can rely on it. So that could be something that might be on your roadmap. Yeah. Another thing to mention is that there are national contact points, and these are appointed individuals by the UK government, and these people can give you impartial advice on Horizon Europe and help you find partners. So each cluster will have its own national contact point, and they're really, really helpful in helping you build consortiums. They can review applications, they can answer any questions, they can point you in the right direction. You know, they can signpost you to different guidance material, support services. I speak to these people a lot, and they are very, very helpful. And also you can find the national contact points from different participating countries. So if you did want to do something like this and you wanted to work with Italy, you could find a national contact point in Italy, and they could potentially help you develop consortiums. But there's a lot of other helpful resources out there as well. This is just one resource that's useful. And as well with Horizon Europe, another thing that you could look to do is registering as an expert. So some people do this at the AMRC, and by doing this, you gain a lot of insight and experience into how applications are assessed, the kind of things they're looking for. And this is, you know, it's really, really useful. I think there's like a form you have to fill out first. You say what you specialize in, and then you kind of go into a database. And if anyone is doing a project, they'll kind of call on you then to do this. Another good thing is that I heard you're paid at around €450 a day to be an assessor. So that's another perk. And I think that women are especially wanted to be assessors, because they have to make sure that they have the same number of male to female assessors for non-bias on reviewing applications. So I appreciate that's a lot of information for you to process, but here are some additional funders that we haven't gone into detail, but Eureka, that could be something that you're interested in. So they help support partnerships from Europe. They help support international collaboration. They don't actually provide the funding, but then they would, you'd kind of get a label, and then you'd be recommended, it would be recommended that your national funding agency, i.e. Innovate UK, would fund your part of the project. There is a lot of bureaucracy kind of involved in applying for these, but the success rate is quite good. So that could be something you look into. DSTL is for defence funding, but these are tenders. So they offer research and commercial tenders. Again, 100% funded. So that could be an option to look into. ESA or space funding, that could be something you want to look into. Again, those are 100% funded. And the Advanced Propulsion Centre funds low carbon propulsion technologies. So hydrogen-powered vehicles, that kind of stuff. So that could be another area that you might want to explore. And that's it. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Charlotte. Thanks for a really in-depth overview of the funding landscape. We've got a few questions that have come up in Q&A, so we'll use a couple of minutes just to go through those. Probably the most common question is, are you able to share the PowerPoint slides after the session so that people can go through them in their own time?
Yes, of course.
Great, so we'll share those to the group that have signed up for this webinar. Couple of other questions. I think we covered Julienne's question about the age limit for Future Leaders Fellowships during the discussion. And then I think also Eloise has responded to that in the questions as well. So we'll move on for that one. The next question that came up, BT was asking, is there a minimum organisational size for the Business Future Leaders Fellowship process?
A minimum organisational size?
Yeah, so is there, I guess, a minimum number of staff or turnover that's required for somebody to take advantage of that scheme?
I actually don't know. The only thing I would say is that it will be all about translating impact. So if the organisation is quite small, how are they able to, do they have the ability to translate that impact? Do you know what I mean? Do they have the facilities to enable them to do that?
I think that, yeah, that's probably a good prompt, isn't it? I think BT's probably thinking of from the perspective of having started her own spin-out organisation off the back of a researcher in residence project. So potentially that as a next step.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know the answer to that question. So if I was you, I would reach out to them and just ask them on the when you search for them, if you put Future Leaders Fellowship into Google, they have a contact at the bottom, and they usually are quite responsive in answering people's questions. So I'd confirm with the contact for the specific scheme.
And then I think the final question online is a question about when that scheme's going to be open again next year, or will it be open again next year? I think they do tend to be operating on a yearly cycle, don't they? So there's probably an expectation that it will be live again next year, but that doesn't rule out them changing their minds.
Yeah, it will be to do, if they've got budget for it, but I'm sure that it will be available next year. There was there've been previous cycles of this. I don't know the exact date, but what you can do if you find this opportunity online for the round 10, it will tell you when it opened this year. So then you can use that as a guide to help you see when it might be open next year. It'll be probably something like February, March it opened, I would have thought.
Yeah, they do tend to be quite consistent with their launch dates. I guess unless there is a general election that gets in the way, which means they're not allowed to announce things in the PERDA period. So yeah, looking at last year's date and moving a year on for that is probably a good safe bet. I think, as with all of these things, signing up for the UKRI mailing list for announcements about new funding opportunities is probably sensible as well, because I have seen Future Leaders Fellowships come up through that, and there's a steady stream of new opportunities that are announced each week. Obviously, not all of them will be applicable to everybody, but there will be all sorts that come up that certainly are new to me. So I will start thinking about, well, actually, do we have anyone at the AMRC that could benefit from this? And then you find out about all sorts of new opportunities. So apologies, I think we've reached our time limit for today, haven't we? This is obviously the first of a series of webinars that we have organised, and the next of those is going to be in 2 weeks' time, on Wednesday, the 17th of September, at 12 o'clock, as with this one. And I think next time around, Charlotte, you're going to be going into a little bit more detail about Innovate UK and funding innovative projects through that mechanism.
That's right, yeah. We'll be looking at Innovate UK in more detail, but we'll be looking actually at the different application sections and working through those. So it's a lot more in-depth than this, which is just a top-level overview, really.
Yeah, and we also had 4 questions that were submitted in advance. I think we'll, because of time now, we will put out an email answer to each of those questions so that we're giving them the time that they warrant.
Yep.
Okay. So thanks, Charlotte, for your time today and giving everyone a good overview, and hopefully see everybody in 2 weeks' time for the next webinar.